Ify'ok, or Ify as her ever-growing fanbase affectionately called her, was a force of nature in the bustling heart of Diobu, Port Harcourt. At 26, her online fashion business, Ify'sThread, was not just thriving, it was exploding. Her unique blend of contemporary designs infused with the vibrant spirit of Ankara and Adire fabrics had captured the attention of fashion enthusiasts far beyond the shores of Nigeria. Orders poured in from London, Atlanta, even Dubai, each colorful package carrying a piece of Ify's infectious energy and her keen eye for style. Her small apartment had transformed into a mini hub of creativity and commerce. One room was now a vibrant studio, filled with sketches, swatches of dazzling fabrics, and the rhythmic hum of her trusty sewing machines. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages from customers, suppliers, and her loyal team of 2 young apprentices she had taken under her wing. Ify believed in paying it forward, remembering her own early struggles to find her footing in the competitive world of fashion. Beyond her booming business, Ify's personal life was also blossoming. She was deeply in love with Peter, a kind and ambitious architect who saw the world with the same optimistic sparkle in his eyes as she did. Their relationship was a source of immense joy and stability in her often chaotic life. They talked for hours about their dreams, Ify envisioning a flagship store in Lagos, and Peter sketching plans for eco-friendly housing in the Niger Delta. Marriage was definitely on the horizon, a beautiful tapestry they were slowly weaving together. Ify's generosity radiated beyond her business and her relationship. She was a pillar in her Diobu neighborhood. She often organized small community events, like fashion workshops for aspiring young designers, using her own resources to provide materials and mentorship. During festive seasons, she was known for distributing food items and small gifts to the less privileged families in her compound. Her laughter was infectious, her spirit uplifting, and she had a knack for making everyone around her feel seen and valued. Even Auntie Benair, her neighbor a few doors down, benefited from Ify's kindness, though she rarely acknowledged it. Ify had subtly recommended Auntie Benair's tailoring services to some of her older clients who preferred more traditional styles, throwing her a few much-needed jobs when Auntie Benair's business had visibly started to decline. Ify, in her open-hearted nature, saw it as simply being a good neighbor. She was oblivious to the simmering resentment that brewed beneath Auntie Benair's forced smiles. Life in the compound was a vibrant mix of sounds and smells, the aroma of jollof rice wafting through the air, the lively chatter of neighbors, the latest Afrobeats tunes spilling from open windows. Ify navigated this energetic environment with grace and genuine warmth, her bright spirit a beacon in the community. Then came the news of her grandmother, Mama Nkem, planning a visit. Mama Nkem, Ify's elderly grandmother, was a respected figure in their ancestral village. Her visits were rare but significant, often accompanied by stories of the old ways and a deep understanding of their family history. Ify looked forward to seeing her, unaware of the memories and resentments her grandmother's presence would stir in Auntie Benair. The day Mama Nkem arrived, Auntie Benair quickly recognized her as the mother of Ngozi, the woman she lost the love of her life 2 years back. So Ify must be related to Ngozi, she thought to herself. Her demeanor subtly shifted. The forced smiles became thinner, her greetings curt. Seeing Mama Nkem interact warmly with Ify, noticing the familiar glint in her grandmother's eyes as she looked at the young woman who so resembled Ngozi, seemed to twist something dark within Auntie Benair. The old wound of lost love, the man who had chosen Ngozi over her decades ago, reopened with a painful intensity. It was a few nights after Mama Nkem's arrival that Ify, exhausted from finalizing a large international order, carelessly left a beautiful new Ankara maxi dress hanging on the communal clothesline. The vibrant patterns seemed to dance under the moonlight. Auntie Bene watched from her window, her heart a knot of bitterness. The sight of Ify's success, amplified by the presence of her grandmother and the painful reminder of the past, finally pushed her over the edge. Under the cover of darkness, fueled by years of simmering resentment and the fresh sting of old heartbreak, Auntie Bene crept out. The small, dark charm, a relic from a troubled past, felt cold in her hand as she brushed it against the fabric of Ify's dress, whispering silent words of malice, her envy a potent weapon aimed at the bright star of Diobu. The threads of Ify's flourishing life were about to be tangled by the shadow of a neighbor's long-held pain. 2. The days that followed were like a slow-motion nightmare for Ify. The vibrant energy that usually propelled her through life began to wane. It started subtly, a persistent fatigue that no amount of sleep could shake, a strange lack of focus that made designing feel like wading through thick mud. Her business, her pride and joy, started to falter. The international orders that had once been a source of excitement became riddled with inexplicable complications, delayed shipments, lost packages, and increasingly demanding and dissatisfied customers. Her website, usually a seamless portal to her designs, began to glitch erratically, displaying distorted images and processing payments incorrectly. Even her social media, her most powerful tool for connection, felt strangely muted. Her posts garnered fewer likes, comments dwindled, and her once loyal followers seemed to drift away. Her relationship with Peter, once a haven of peace and understanding, began to fray at the edges. Small misunderstandings escalated into frustrating arguments. Ify found herself snapping at him over minor things, her usual optimism replaced by annoying irritability. The easy flow of their conversations became stilted, filled with unspoken tensions. The beautiful future they had envisioned together seemed to dim with each passing day. Even her interactions with her friends became strained. Chitty's playful banter felt grating, Amara's spiritual insights seemed distant and unhelpful, and Femi's laid-back attitude felt insensitive to her growing distress. Ify found herself withdrawing, preferring the solitude of her increasingly chaotic apartment. The laughter that once echoed around her now felt like a distant memory. Her generosity, once a natural extension of her vibrant spirit, began to feel like a heavy burden. The desire to help others waned as she struggled to keep her own life from unraveling. The light within her, once so bright, was dimming under the weight of an unseen force. She consulted doctors, attributing her fatigue to overwork and stress. But the tests came back normal, offering no explanation for the pervasive malaise that had settled over her. She tried taking breaks, spending weekends away, but the cloud of negativity seemed to follow her, an invisible weight dragging her down. Mariquette watched Ify's slow decline with growing concern. She noticed the unusual quietness that had descended upon the once lively apartment, the dark circles under Ify's eyes, the forced smiles that didn't reach her gaze. She remembered her warnings about leaving clothes out at night, a knot of unease tightening in her stomach. One sweltering afternoon, as Ify sat listlessly on her veranda, staring blankly at the bustling compound, Brother Michael's booming voice echoed from the street corner. He was preaching about unseen battles and the power of faith to overcome darkness. Usually, Ify would barely register his presence, but today, his words seemed to resonate with the inexplicable turmoil she was experiencing. A flicker of something desperation, perhaps, or a sliver of hope stirred within her. That evening, drawn by an invisible pull, Ify found herself standing at the edge of the small crowd gathered around Brother Michael. His words, filled with conviction and a deep understanding of both the seen and unseen worlds, seemed to speak directly to her soul. He spoke of unseen forces that could attack in subtle ways, of the importance of spiritual vigilance, and the unwavering power of divine intervention. As he prayed, his voice rising in fervent supplication, Ify felt a strange stirring within her, a sense of a heavy weight momentarily lifting from her shoulders. It was the first time in weeks she had felt a glimmer of hope in the suffocating darkness that had enveloped her life. Drawn by this unexpected glimmer of hope, Ify started attending Brother Michael's gatherings regularly. His sermons, often filled with vivid parables and fervent pronouncements, resonated with a part of her that modern science and logic couldn't reach. He spoke of spiritual warfare not as some distant concept, but as a daily reality, where negative energies, fueled by envy and malice, could indeed take root and cause tangible harm. Brother Michael didn't offer quick fixes or magical solutions. Instead, he emphasized the importance of faith, prayer, and seeking divine protection. He encouraged Ify to examine her heart, to release any bitterness or resentment she might be harboring, and to surround herself with positive energy and the Word of God. He taught her simple prayers of protection and urged her to be mindful of the unseen forces at play in her life. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the oppressive atmosphere around Ify began to lift. The persistent fatigue started to recede, replaced by small bursts of her former energy. Her focus sharpened, and the creative ideas that had been stubbornly dormant began to flicker back to life. One morning, she woke up with a clear vision for a new design, a vibrant fusion of Ankara and lace that felt fresh and exciting. As she sketched, the joy of creation, which had been absent for so long, flooded back, a warm wave washing away some of the lingering darkness. Her business showed tentative signs of recovery. A previously disgruntled international customer sent an apologetic email, explaining a misunderstanding on their end. The glitches on her website mysteriously resolved themselves. A popular Nigerian influencer, whom she had almost given up on collaborating with, suddenly reached out, expressing enthusiastic interest in her latest collection. Even her relationship with Peter began to mend. As Ify's inner turmoil eased, her irritability subsided, and the easy flow of their connection gradually returned. They started having meaningful conversations again, sharing their dreams and supporting each other's aspirations. The shadow that had fallen over their future began to dissipate, replaced by the warm glow of renewed hope. As Ify's light began to rekindle, a stark contrast emerged in Auntie Bene's life. The subtle air of misfortune that had begun to cling to her intensified. Her sewing machine, once her most reliable companion, broke down completely, and the cost of repair was beyond her means. Her remaining customers, frustrated by her increasingly erratic work and her withdrawn demeanor, sought out other tailors. Loneliness became her constant companion, the once familiar sounds of the compound now a reminder of the vibrant life she felt excluded from. Her health also began to suffer. She complained of persistent headaches, a lack of appetite, and an gnawing sense of unease that mirrored Ify's earlier suffering. The vibrant colors of her own fabrics seemed to dim, reflecting the growing darkness within her. One particularly difficult evening, consumed by guilt and a growing fear that her actions had somehow boomeranged on her, Auntie Bene saw Ify returning from one of Brother Michael's gatherings. There was a lightness in Ify's step, a renewed sparkle in her eyes that Auntie Bene hadn't seen in weeks. The contrast between Ify's emerging radiance and her own deepening despair was stark and unsettling. Driven by a desperate need to unburden herself, and perhaps a subconscious hope for some form of release, Auntie Bene finally approached Ify, her face etched with a mixture of shame and fear. The confession tumbled out, a torrent of guilt and regret, revealing the long-held resentment and the dark act performed under the cover of night. The truth, like a festering wound, finally exposed. The weight of Auntie Bene's confession hung heavy in the humid evening air, a stark contrast to the gentle breeze rustling the leaves in the compound. Ify stood in stunned silence, the pieces of the recent weeks clicking into a horrifying clarity. The fatigue, the business mishaps, the strained relationships, it all pointed to a deliberate act of malice fueled by a pain she had unknowingly triggered. A wave of emotions washed over Ify, shock, hurt, and a dawning understanding of the unseen battles Brother Michael had spoken of. She looked at Auntie Bene, her neighbor's face etched with a raw mixture of shame and fear, and saw not just an adversary, but a woman consumed by a decades-old wound. In that moment, something shifted within Ify. The bitterness that could have easily taken root was instead tempered by a profound sense of empathy. She saw the destructive power of unresolved pain, the way it could fester and lash out, poisoning not only the heart that held it, but also those around it. Ify reached out, her hand gently touching Auntie Bene's trembling arm. "Auntie Bene," she said softly, her voice filled with a compassion that surprised even herself, "I understand that you have carried a heavy burden for a long time." The days that followed were a slow process of healing and reconciliation. Ify, guided by Brother Michael's teachings on forgiveness and the power of prayer, chose to extend grace to Auntie Bene. It wasn't easy. The memory of the distress she had endured was still fresh. But she recognized that holding on to resentment would only perpetuate the cycle of pain. With Ify's quiet support and encouragement from Brother Michael's community, Auntie Bene began her own journey of healing. She sought solace in prayer and found comfort in sharing her story. The darkness that had clung to her began to dissipate, replaced by a fragile sense of peace. Life in the compound gradually returned to its vibrant rhythm, though subtly changed. There was a newfound awareness of the unseen threads that connected them, the potential for both great kindness and deep hurt. Ify's business flourished once more, stronger for having weathered the storm. Her relationship with Peter deepened, their bond forged in the crucible of shared adversity. Mama Nkem, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, shared stories of resilience and the importance of community, her wise eyes holding a knowing understanding. Her presence became a source of quiet strength for both Ify and, surprisingly, for a slowly healing Auntie Bene. Ify's experience served as a potent reminder that success and joy could sometimes attract shadows. It taught her the importance of spiritual vigilance, the power of forgiveness, and the enduring strength of a community bound by empathy and grace. The bright star of Diobu had faced a moment of darkness, but in choosing compassion over bitterness, she had not only reclaimed her light, but had also offered a glimmer of hope to the woman who had sought to dim it. The threads of Ify's life, once tangled by malice, were now being rewoven with a deeper understanding of the intricate tapestry of human emotions and the enduring power of the human spirit to heal and forgive. Thank you for staying till the end. Please do well to subscribe, like and hit the notification button for more stories.